Hi, I'm Tara from the Marathon Mates. On this episode of the Flying Runner, we're talking about all things women need to know when it comes to running, from chafing in uncomfortable areas to understanding how your running can be affected depending on your menstrual cycle. Nothing's off limits on this episode. We'll share our knowledge and tips and tricks to help you get out there and run your best. Are you ready to run? Let's go.
Welcome to the thrilling world of the Flying Runner, brought to you by the Marathon Mates.
Everyone, I'm Tara, and welcome to episode number 87 of the Flying Runr Podcast. On tonight's episode, we are talking all about women and running. We'll share our knowledge and talk about the things that we do to help us get out there and run. But first, let's introduce my fellow co-hosts, our 6-star medalists, Tony and Lucia. Oh, no, we don't have Tony tonight. I do apologise. So we've got Tim and Lucia. So Tony's actually having a night off for a well-deserved break. So, guys, how are you all? And how's your week been? Lucia, we'll start with you.
Week's been busy, but a good one. So I spent part of it down at the South Coast, Huskinson, for a triathlon weekend. And before any of our listeners get excited, don't worry, I didn't do a triathlon. I was there to support and do the bakery runs, which is like it was just nice to escape for about 24 hours, did a nice 10K run along the South Coast, along the beautiful beaches there. Then yesterday, I was at the Sydney Marathon Run Club. I was sweeping, which was good, just to help people and encouraging them along and give them some tips and a little bit of motivation. Like too late, it was a hot day in Sydney yesterday morning, hot day, until the ladies at the back, they were wearing jackets. I'm like, guys, you need to take the jackets off, because it's only going to get hotter, and just making sure that people were stopping at the water bubblers, taking on water. It was a good vibes all around. And they're also, and the Sydney Marathon Run Club, they're giving away 3 non-complimentary entries into the marathon at all Sydney Run Clubs. So for any of our listeners, if you're trying to get an entry, make sure you come to the Sydney Marathon Run Clubs for a chance for a non-complimentary race entry. So the next one is the Sunday, the 30th of March. It's a nice 12K loop around Barangaroo, takes on parts of the course, which is cool. So yeah, that was my weekend. And Team Alice?
Oh, I was just going to say, Lucia, when you say non-complimentary, I presume that means you've got to pay full rate,
correct.
The full rate for the entry, yeah?
Yeah, correct.
Still a good deal if you can get an entry that you didn't have previously. So
exactly.
Gives you a star. So yeah. For us, Tara, I didn't do any running, so I'm not sure what you've done because I'm down here at the coast. But yeah, no running for me still. I'm still recovering the arm, and the ribs are getting better. It's just a slow slog, and I'm 2 and a bit weeks into my recovery, and I can tell you I'm just really itching to go for a run. I really want to run. Starting to get a little bit antsy a little bit, but it is what it is. Went for a walk yesterday with some really good friends of ours who are running Tokyo Marathon. We'll talk about that a bit later on. Also went and walked at Paradise Point Park Run on Saturday with some good friends of ours who we met in New York just recently, and it was their very first park run. So we've enabled another lot of people to go off and join this big thing called park run that's around the world. So they had a lot of fun. They were hooked straight away. We caught up with them afterwards for breakfast, and they're like, right, where's the next one next week? How do we get to it? What do we do? So
awesome.
Yeah, it was really good to see that. But yeah, that was my exercise week, I guess. Tara, do you want to add anything more?
Yeah, no, I've just been, obviously without Tim running, I've just been running on the treadmill. I've actually been a bit lazy this week. I think I've only done maybe 2 or 3 treadmill runs, 5 to 7Ks, not really pushing it hard in distance or pace or anything at the moment. Paradise Point Park Run I did, ran that, I think it was about 32 minutes. So just cruising along, taking it easy. And we walked with Brian and Monica, who are doing Tokyo Marathon on Sunday. Oh, they're doing it on Sunday, but I walked with them on last Sunday. So yeah, no, it was a great weekend.
Now, Tim, I've got to ask, when you start running again, are you going to classify that as week 1, or is it going to be like a 3? Okay, just want to...
No. Straight back into it, Lucia. This is my pre-weeks now, if you want to have multiple pre-weeks. But I don't believe in that stuff. It's just straight into the training program. So,
oh, God,
week 1
thanks
is
for
week 1.
the pot. Well done, Lucia.
Well I have to.
Week 1 is week 1. It is interesting.
Guys.
I've talked to a few people recently, and they all say there's no such thing as a pre-week. It's just week 1.
Right, let's get off that subject and we'll go on to where we are going to be talking about the news. So, Tim, what has been happening around the world this week in the news?
Thanks, Tara. I guess the big news in the marathon majors space is that over the last couple of days, they've released the 2024 version of the Boston Marathon medal. Now, this one always 2025. Did I say 2024? There you go. 2025 Boston Marathon medal, the 129th edition of the Boston Marathon. This always gets a lot of people talking on social media. And in recent years, the biggest issue has always been how big the sponsor's logo is in the middle of it. I think the medal itself this year is a vast improvement on what it has been previously. That's my sort of opinion of it. Still got the Bank of America logo in there, but it's probably not as prominent to keep some of those people happy on the side there. I like it. But at the end of the day, I also like the medal I got because I earned that one. And I think anyone who goes out there and run it, it doesn't matter what it really looks like. It's what it actually means when you've got it around your neck and when you look at it later on. So for me, guys, I would be proud to have that medal, but at the same time, I'm very comfortable having the medal I got last year. What do you guys think?
I'm probably similar mindset to you. I love my medal just because I know, like, for me, all the work I put into it, and that's where I got my 6-star. But I don't know if I'm a massive fan of it because they've kind of changed the design and it's not what it used to be. I think some things should stick how they are. And I think Boston's one of those ones, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But obviously you can't make anyone happy. But then saying that, if I was to run it this year, I'd still be happy with it.
Yeah, I agree. Look, the unicorn, and what Lucia is talking about is the unicorn has changed this year. It's got a different, it's a different shape and a different feel about it. It's a sharper feel. It's facing the opposite direction. We've still got the blue and yellow. It's a little bit more of a 3D sort of medal rather than our flat ones that we got last year. It's probably a bit more flashy, I would say, than the usual Boston Marathon medals, which are not plain by any means, but they're very, they are very stock standard pretty much every year. So they have definitely changed it around a bit this year. I like it, but those traditionalists probably don't. So, yes.
Yeah, it is funny. Not one person on social media that I saw was complaining about the unicorn being the wrong way or that it looked aggressive. Everyone I saw was always commenting on the Bank of America logo and the general feel of it. Most people online were saying they loved it. As I said, I like it. It's a nice design. It's a nice medal, but I like my medal, and that's the one that matters for me, I guess. So, but yeah, good luck to everyone who's going out there this year to chase the unicorn. The next bit of news is, again, in the US, a bit of a US theme to it. It's around the US national parks. So as we know, there's been a change of government in the United States. They're looking at, as a change of government, they're looking at reducing the government spend at the moment. And one of the things that they have done in recent weeks or recent days is announced that they're going to cut spending to the US national parks, and particularly the number of US national parks rangers that are out there. Now, a lot of runners, particularly trail runners, are concerned about this throughout the US because it will mean that there will be less people there to keep an eye on the paths, to maintain them, to ensure that there's enough security and things in place. But on top of that, to be able to undertake search and rescue operations or respond to a medical emergency, and just general enforcement of safety rules and requirements in those trails as well. So, picturing it back here in Australia, it'd be like if a number of the parks you were running in didn't have people looking after them and maintaining them in our national parks or state forests or conservation parks that we have around the place. They would get overgrown pretty easily. You'd be concerned about your own safety and your ability to be rescued. So, a number of people in those areas are a little bit concerned, and I guess it is something that doesn't always get thought about when people are focusing on cutting costs and reducing expenditure. So just a little bit of news on that one. And I guess the final bit of news is the Tokyo Marathon is on this weekend. It will actually be on just after we release this episode. As always, I look forward to this event every year. It's the first major marathon of the year. For me, it really kick-starts the cycle. All of a sudden, you're in March, you've got Tokyo, then you're looking towards April where you've got Boston and then London, and then it's not a fast slog now till Sydney in August, and then you've got September with Berlin, October with Chicago, and November with New York. So the cycle is happening. This year, it's officially the 18th Tokyo Marathon, and as always, it's going to be another cracker of the year. We've talked about this before, but in the men's race, we've got Benson Kipruto returning after winning the event last year. On top of that, we've got Joshua Cheptegei, who is the world record holder for the 5,000 and 10,000 meter events on the track. We also have Dorisa Gilletta and Vincent Engetich, who came third last year, and Titus Kipruto, who came fourth in 2023. So it's a strong field. I'm looking forward to the men's field. In the women's race, there will be winners of the last 3 Tokyo Marathons in the field. Sutme Kabidi, who won last year, Rosemary Wanjiro, who won it in 2023, and the former world record holder Bridget Kosgei, who won it in 2022. So it's going to be great to see those girls have a crack at it. And I'm also looking forward to Jess Stenson from Australia, who's in the elite field. She last ran at the Paris Olympics last year and finished 13th overall, the top-ranked Aussie. Her personal best is 2:26, and she'll be looking to go a lot faster than that. So, guys, I get really excited about this one. We were on the weekend talking to our friends Monica and Brian, who depart today, Monday, to go over to Tokyo and run the marathon over there. Lucia, you'd be excited. They're going to Disneyland over there first on tomorrow and Wednesday, I think it is, before then moving over into KO Plaza, where they'll be staying with all the other elites and traveling fit runners. So good luck to Brian and Monica, but really good luck to everyone who's running it over there. And I know Bill Troy, one of our friends as well, is also running it as well. So
and also
good luck to everyone.
A friend of ours, Megan as well, she's flying out tomorrow for it as well. She did the smart move because they've changed their tactic with the merchandise. Meg's actually ordered some and she's had it delivered to her hotel because she just heard all of the horror stories from what we told her. So she's preempted and she's pre-ordered her merch.
Yeah, it's the way to do it. So I'm excited.
Osaka Marathon that was just held as well over this weekend. So last weekend, when you're listening to this podcast, it would have been last weekend, and we had a friend of ours, Peter Hillman, who has run it. And from the looks of things, I think there may have been some snow on the course.
Yeah, a number of snow flurries through the course of the race. I think she said there was about 10 times where it snowed during the race.
It looked like a nice race, though. Did you see those pictures as well, Lucia?
Yeah, it looked really nice. And then the really interesting thing about the Japanese marathons at the moment. So we've got Osaka today, Tokyo Sunday, and then it's the Nagoya women's marathon the following weekend. So if you were crazy enough, you could do 3 marathons in 3 weeks.
And how good would that be? How good would that be?
It would be amazing. And you know what? As a woman, we are capable of everything. And this is what we're talking about today on our show. So let's get into that one because we've finished with the news for now. So we're going to talk about the topic, which is women's running. Now, Tim, I know that you do a lot of running with me, so you will know most of this already as well, which is really good. But feel free to contribute to this conversation as well because you do know how women run very, very well. Most of our listeners are in the sort of age range of Lucia and I, of the female listeners. And so that's 60% of our listeners, and that's like in the between 35 to 50 to 60 sort of age group. So we'll sort of focus more on that because that's our own personal experience. I don't really have a lot of personal experience with pram running because I wasn't a runner when I was running when I had the kids. So I can't really comment on pram running. So I apologise in advance that we're not really covering that. So,
and then I think the other thing we just need to mention as well, for our listeners, any advice we're giving, it's just our personal experiences. So if there are any concerns you do have, please go seek medical advice. We are not medical practitioners. It's just our first-hand knowledge.
That's exactly it. Yeah, we're definitely not medical professionals. So, just make sure that this is just chats that we have between our friends and our own personal experiences. So, Luch, let's have a talk about a few things. So I know number one is probably not necessarily number one in the concerns of females, but I'm going to talk about safety. So personally, how do you feel when you're running out there by yourself? Do you feel that you can run in the dark? Do you need to have a safety alarm? Do you have some sort of GPS tracking thing on you? Do you stay in well-lit areas? What's your experience?
Because I do a lot of running on my own, especially on my longer runs, and I'm very conscious, especially when it's not daylight savings. I don't like going out when it's pitch black because you just don't know. So I'm very conscious if I do have to go out, I make sure I have a head torch on and wear light clothing or something which is reflective. And I won't turn my music on either because I want to make sure that I can hear everything around me, and I try and run in well-lit areas. So I do a lot of my running in Centennial Park, and I'm not a big fan of the cyclists, truth be told, but on some occasions when it's pitch black, and I tend to go the opposite way to they go. It's that way there's always kind of lights coming on me, but I am very conscious that sometimes even just the slightest noise, it does have me on edge sometimes. But yeah, as I said, I won't go deep into paths which there's no light in. Even if I'm not running in the park, if I'm going down to the Opera House, like certain parts are well lit better than others, and then I may not necessarily run on the footpath the whole time, maybe a bit more on the road, just because I'm thinking, okay, I may be a bit safer not being right on the footpath, because sometimes I've got weird thoughts going through my mind. Unfortunately, it's the world we live in, and we do have to be conscious of where we're running. I think the one thing that's disappointing that sometimes I see is when it's pitch black and people are wearing dark colours, you can't see people coming, and it's not safe for either party. And then sometimes if I forget my head torch, I always run with my phone, and I'll use the lamp on my phone.
Perfect. Yep, absolutely. And look, I'm fairly lucky. 95% of the time, if I'm going to be running in the dark, I can run with Tim. But however, now that he's living down the Gold Coast, I do take to the treadmill personally myself. I know a lot of people don't like the treadmill. However, it does keep that ability to be able to run in a safe environment happening for you. I also have a safety alarm. So I like to do a fair bit of running by myself whenever possible. And I actually carry the safety alarm with me, whether it be daylight, whatever. I just always carry it with me if I'm running by myself. So it's just a little thing I can hold in my hand. It's got a keyring that attaches to it, which wraps around my finger. And if I'm in trouble, I just have to disconnect that keyring part to the little thing that sits in my hand, and it lets out a really high-pitched screeching noise. It cost me like $5-6 from like the cheap shop, and it just takes little batteries. So they're not expensive to buy, and they're very easy to purchase. So highly recommend those sort of things. I also recommend, as Lucia said, don't run with your headphones like all the way in or over the headphones. If you've got the aftershocks or something like that and it's daylight, definitely. Nighttime though, look, unfortunately we do live in a world where even during daylight runs and stuff like that, 95% of Australian female listeners would have known about what's happened with Samantha Murphy. She went out for a morning run, didn't come home, unfortunately, due to a male thinking that he was entitled to do things that he shouldn't. So definitely make sure that you've got that safety aspect in your mind at all times when you are running. Dogs are a really good one to run with because a lot of people don't want to mess with a dog. Doesn't matter what size they are, they make noise. So, I know personally.
Sorry, I was just going to also add in, one other thing to add in there is around GPS or sharing your location with others. So using apps like Life 360 or using your Garmin watch to be able to share your live track with somebody that can keep an eye on you remotely, or at least be able to locate you if need be.
Yep, excellent. And that's exactly what I was just going to mention as well, Tim, because that live track goes straight to you. So as soon as I started a live track start a run on my Garmin, if it's outside, Tim gets the tracking device, so he gets to see where I am at all times. I also have a program on my phone, or an app on my phone called Life 360, so he can see exactly where I am at all times. I also have on my Garmin, if I take a fall or anything like that, it actually has an emergency alert, so that as soon as I take a fall, it doesn't matter if I'm conscious or unconscious, it will send my coordinates to Tim so that he can then ring an ambulance for me if needed, or get help wherever I am. So, yep. Sorry.
I was going to add one more thing. And if you're planning on going for a run in the dark, in somewhere in which you haven't run before, go for some runs in the daylight first, and that way you can get used to the area, know the paths. Because I wouldn't recommend running in a new area at dark, not knowing if there's even divots in the path. And before running any new paths in the dark, run it in the day, just to give yourself that confidence as well.
Absolutely. Perfect. So if you've got any comments on the safety side of things, please feel free to message us or comment on this. You're always welcome to. More the merrier. We're going to now talk about clothing and the dreaded chafe. That's the best way I can put it. Lucia, you and I both know how bad this can be, and we're not the only females. And I know males get it as well. But let's talk about bras.
It's one of those things that you can wear the same bra 10 times. You can get chafing for half, chafing for not half. I find for me, I'm not the best at doing it because I remember as I'm halfway through my run, putting some body glide on, any type, or even some kind of Vaseline just to soften, because I tend to get it under the breasts a fair bit, or even some tape. There are a number of ways to do it. There's no hard or fast rule on chafing to say this will work, this won't work, because everybody's body is different. And the thing that not makes me laugh, but I'll never forget, as we were training for Boston, some of our listeners will know, a whole bunch of us had a group on Messenger, and the Sunday conversation was always daily, was always weekly around chafing, which I know Tim loved when those conversations came up, because it was like people would chafe in places that you didn't realize you could chafe, and it would always come up when you were having a shower. You'd turn the water on, you'd feel it, you're like, God, you're screaming at the top of your lungs. So for me, it's just trying to remember to put that kind of like a sunscreen for the body for the anti-chafe, but some products work better than others. So I think it's just a question of going out there and trying to see what works best for you, because as we said earlier, what works for us may not necessarily work for everyone. We're just trying to help our listeners and give some advice.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, there is places that you chafe that you don't even think about. And I know trail runners that I talk to, they use a product called Squirrel's Nut Butter, which is pretty much appropriate because think about where it's going, right? So there's chafing in your butt cheeks, there's chafing in, your crotch area, chafing in your legs, chafing under your arms. For the males, it's chafing on the nipples. Females were lucky enough to wear a bra, but that can actually cause chafing in other areas. But females, we chafe a lot behind our back where you've got a really tight bra and the clasps are touching, and underneath your breasts and also on your shoulders because of the weight. So make sure your bra is a supportive, high-impact bra. Make sure it's one that you're actually designed for running. Those thin strap crop tops, they look amazing if you've got the right body, but they're not going to do anything for you for running. So personally, I like the Lululemon Elite Weave Back. Now that's no underwire. It's a bra. It's got the clasps at the back, but it's got no chafe areas. Like it's actually covered with a material that you can't chafe, and it's got thick straps, and it's very supportive. For a crop top, I like the Lorna Jane Amy Max Support, I think it's called. And if you prefer a crop top, they just are just amazing. They're just high impact, easy to put on, take off, unless you're sweaty, so which is always. I do recommend, though, that if you have a bra that is giving you chafing so badly that you're actually bleeding or getting marks from it, try some Fix-A-Mole tape, as Lucia has said. Try some Body Glide. If that's not working, perhaps use that bra for something other than running. Use it for your gym work or just for a cycle or something like that. Give up on it for your running. And I also recommend giving up on bras or crop tops that have got what's the best way to put it? Sweaty patch underneath your breasts. So it's like a crusty, hard part that will eventually give you chafing as well. The no amount of soaking is ever going to get rid of that. Just ditch it. So, yeah. Running shorts, do you have any preferences or recommendations for yourself, Lucia?
I pretty much do all my running in Lululemon Fast and Free.
Me too. Yep.
I'm a big fan of the 10-inch ones. They're just slightly above the knee, but I don't think they make the 10-inch anymore. Otherwise, the 19-inch, because the Fast and Free material, it's just so light on the body. It for me, it doesn't. What's what I'm trying to like? It doesn't move. It stays in place. It covers the tummy area, which I love. So I'm a big fan of the Lululemon Fast and Free. They are a little bit expensive, but for me, it's worth the quality because they last for ages. And surprising, I don't get chafing when I wear those.
I 100% agree. And I have tried many different running shorts and stuff like that. So I have tried the looser shorts. I will chafe with those because the thighs, I don't have a thigh gap, but even the amount of Body Glide you put on, you're going to chafe. Well, I do personally. So I find that the bike short type ones work for me, and I'm with you. The Lululemon work really, really well. So with a running top or a singlet, I recommend putting on Body Glide probably underneath the arms as well for the chafing. But with running tops, if they're too loose or too tight, they can also cause chafing too. So it is a case of personal preference on those running tops. And sometimes you can get chafing on your chest, just up, like on the collar part of it, I guess is the best part. Well, I don't know what you call it, the seam. Occasionally I'll get chafing there for certain singlets. So, yeah.
And it's just bizarre. Sometimes you can wear the same singlet, not get chafing one week, and then you can get chafing another week. Then sometimes I find as well and this happened to me in Boston because, okay, maybe I didn't make the best life choice that day, but I had arm sleeves on because I thought it was going to be cold, and I was just too lazy to take them off. One arm I had chafing, and the other arm I didn't. So sometimes things just don't make sense. It's, as we've said, it can depend on the weather of the day, also how you're feeling, if you've put any Body Glide or anything on So yeah, I wish there was like a proper method to when you chafe, because that would make things so much easier.
Absolutely. And look, we can give you all the advice that works for us. But again, as Lucia says, it's hit and miss for us as well.
Yeah.
I know with males, Tim, you may want to chime in here.
Yeah.
I know it's a women's one, but
we
get
chafe.
you chafe. Nipples, lower regions.
Nipples, underarms, groin, butt, all those things.
Yep.
But I guess the biggest thing that I've learned over the years is you can get smaller containers of Body Glide that are very small, and you can pack them into your pocket when you're running, or even little bottles of Vaseline. And they're handy if you do start to chafe along the run. You can stop and put them on. And I find if I do Body Glide up or I put some Vaseline on in the middle of the run, it does actually stop the chafing at that point. So if you do get some chafing, it might be worthwhile just carrying a little container with you, particularly on your long runs, just to put it on and keep practicing putting it on beforehand in those same spots. And it may not be a problem going forward if you start to learn those places where you chafe regularly.
Yep.
But
perfect.
getting it on early helps.
Oh, it certainly does. And yeah, we've all been through those showers where you don't realise you've chased in certain spots and then you know about it afterwards.
Oh,
so.
You know that, don't you, love?
You certainly do. You certainly do. So I have had some comments. I've put out some questions to some of my running groups, and some of the ladies that I've talked to, and I think most females that I know of will get this pelvic pain when they are running. Now, it's debatable whether or not it's because you've had children or not children. But if you are having pelvic pain, please, please, please go and see a woman's health physio. And because it could be something as serious as bowel or bladder prolapse problems. Maybe go and see your GP just to get an ultrasound done to make sure that there's no underlying concerns there. Don't ignore pelvic pain. Now, pelvic pain can also be caused from things like tight TFL muscles, tight hip flexors, and just general, like if you've got a full bladder or a full bowel, is enough to actually put that pressure onto your ligaments in your hips and your pelvic area, and that can cause problems as well. Also, times of the month that you're ovulating can cause ligament changes and softening and weakening of your ligaments. So depends on where you are in your cycle can cause that. So some people may find it in the middle of their cycle when you've got different levels of estrogen going through your body. That can cause certain things like the pelvic pain and stuff. I know personally for me, after I gave birth to my second child, Patrick, it was a very, very quick birth. I only had an hour and a quarter of labour, I think it was. And because he was a big baby, I actually had a bladder and bowel prolapse at the time. So my bladder actually had to be reattached and have a sling put into it about a year after he was born to ensure. And then after that, it took me about 2 or 3 years to be able to run again to ensure that that had healed properly. And I was able to actually put some pressure and force onto it. So just be aware that there is more to it than just tight muscles in that area. Please, please, please. A good woman's health physio is a must if you are feeling anything there. And also doing your pelvic floor exercises can actually help alleviate some of that pain because you're tightening up the muscles there and it's actually strengthening them. So it's a bit like if you feel when you hit the stairs after a marathon and you're going downstairs and you can feel your glutes or you sit down to the toilet, it's the same sort of thing. It could be a case that you've got either too tighter muscles or overworked muscles as well. So that's where I recommend the women's health physio, definitely. Have you got anything else that you want to add there, Lucia?
No, you pretty much said it all. It's like don't leave things unattended, because if you don't get onto it fast, it potentially could develop into something worse, and you don't want anything to kind of derail your running journey. I'm actually going to ask your question, Tara, this isn't on the run sheet, but it's something that I know I can't comment on. But how old were the kids when you started running? Because I am going somewhere with this.
Okay, so I didn't run properly. Like I would do little short runs when they were younger. Probably they would have been about 3, I guess Patrick would have been, before I started doing little jogs, K or so. But proper running, they would have been maybe
10.
9 or 10. Do you reckon?
Yeah, 9 or 10.
So how did you manage family time with also then making sure you had time to run? Because a lot of women in my run group, they've got kids not as old as yours, but it is something that has come up. It's like, how do you juggle everything, still looking after your family and still getting your things in?
Absolutely. And it's so important to, that's exactly it, juggling. It is so important for you as a mother, especially as for your mental health. Running is a really important thing for your mental health. And to be able to juggle those things is really, really hard. At home, when the kids were young, I actually had a treadmill at home then. It probably got used 3 times because I was so paranoid about the kids touching the treadmill when it was going and that they would skin themselves. And I actually have got a friend whose daughter did do that on a home treadmill and ended up with major surgery and burns to her hand and had to get skin grafts. So, look, I think I just...
Yeah, it's largely rotating it, wasn't it, between you and me a lot of the time. I remember there'd be Saturdays you'd go to park run and I'd look after the kids and vice versa, just so that you could get your runs in or I'd get my runs in. You just learn to juggle it and share it. And we're fortunate because we both run and have always run together. And, so we understand that, we've got to keep running and we've got to keep doing our training or whatever. So it makes it easier. I would hate to be a mother in a relationship where the other partner doesn't run, because it would be harder for them to understand that you need to run or you need to do that training. But for us, I remember we'd constantly, I'd come in from a run and then Tara would go off and do her run or vice versa. Or we'd miss certain days and the other person would run on those days.
Yep. And there is the reason, look, you can have a treadmill as well. So when your kids are younger, you can obviously put them to bed and then do your treadmill run, or do it early in the morning before they wake up. If you don't have a partner that is around to help you or a husband around to help you, invest in a really good running pram is what I probably would recommend. And as I said, I didn't really have a lot of experience running with a pram. I only had a single pram and it was a running pram. However, I would probably do maybe 1 kilometre or so with it. It's really hard work running with a pram. So I actually found it just too hard for me personally to do it. I found that the kids were crying, they'd want food, it would just interrupt everything constantly. And I'm sort of wanting to just keep going. But the kids used to do a lot of parkrun volunteers with us. So they would actually Tim would take them and he would do volunteering that week, and the kids would do the volunteering role with him. Or help out doing some sort of volunteering role. They loved doing tail walking and all of those sort of things because they got to do that as they got older. So there's a lot of ways that you can definitely incorporate it. There's also, if you don't have that support network, I do know of a few of my friends that have got younger children, and as Tim said, they'll all get together and it's almost like, 2 or 3 mums will do a creche type thing with all the kids, and then they swap over. So I guess it's about networking and making sure that you have a really good support group that will help you out. So there's many Facebook groups around that can help you out there. But if you're living in a place where you just can't get that support network to help you out, try and involve exercise with the kids, if that makes any sense. So it doesn't have to necessarily be running, but you just, as long as you're showing them and that it's a good thing to start exercising. So you can go for bike rides, putting your kids on the bike. Our kids used to go on their scooters and bikes next to us when they were old enough. they used to actually bike and scooter next to Tim and I when we could start running together, and they were old enough to control a bike. So they used to be on the bikes next to us quite frequently when we were running. It's a tough thing though, like mentally to try and motivate yourself to get out is hard enough, but then to try and organise that mechanical side of things in the family is really, really tough. So, yeah.
Because this happened to one of the ladies in our run club a few years ago. Maybe about 2 years ago, we had an event that both her and her husband were running, and they actually got a babysitter because she goes, well, it doesn't make a difference if we're going out for dinner on a Saturday night versus going out for a run. In the end, it's the same thing. And I thought that's a great idea because ultimately, like as you said earlier, Tara, it's for the mental health. And I think sometimes people underestimate how important it is just to give yourself that time and to reset, recharge, which will then ultimately help you be a good parent.
Absolutely. And utilising your family, your friends, and trying to book in a regular thing. Look, I know my mum would have loved to have had the kids. She didn't actually, my mum and dad unfortunately didn't live in Brisbane when the kids were young. But however, I know that they would have happily taken the kids for an hour or two each week so that I could go for a run. So definitely utilise your network as well. But yeah, going for a date run that's Tim and I Sunday morning. So that's the best way to put it. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess we've also now got things like nutrition. Now, I'm not going to go into the nutrition as such. I'm only going to go about what Lucia and I find personally good, and I will recommend stuff later on regarding nutrition and what you should do. But at this present point in time, we'll just talk about what we do. Is that all right?
Now, I need to put this caveat out there. What I do works for me. I'm not saying for people to do what I do, and Tim's laughing because he knows exactly where this is going. I'm not your traditional runner in certain aspects, and fueling is probably one of them. Good example, when I went for my run yesterday, we had leftover pizza. I had pizza and a banana before I went out running because I know it works for me. But I'm very conscious that I'll have at least a banana if I'm doing anything over 10 Ks, and also bringing and then again, and depending on how far I plan on running, if it's anything over 10 Ks, I'll have some snakes with me just to give me a bit of sugar when I need it. But then if it's anything about 18 plus, I'll probably take a gel with me as well. So yes, I'm not one of those ones that has a gel every 45 minutes in a race. I've got my routine is as it works for me. It's taken me a long time to get to this point. I probably still need to tweak it a little bit, but I have something every 4Ks. So whether that be some snakes, then I rotate to a bite of a Cliff Bar, and then I have a gel. But then sometimes when I get to the later stages, I can feel my stomach going a bit gurgly because maybe of all the lollies, gels, and all the sports drinks I've been having. So then I may cut back on a gel, but it works. Yeah, but then saying that, I can probably also eat a donut straight after a race too. So, but like,
or during the race.
Exactly. But that's the whole point of training, for people to adapt to what works, try different things in your training, because we've said this a number of times. It's probably one of the most common phrases you'll hear in running: nothing new race day. Like, that's what training runs are used for. If you want to try one brand of gel out 1 week, if that doesn't work, you try another one another week. Yeah, so that's what works for me. Yeah, as I said, it's not probably, if we've got health experts listening, they'll be like, oh, Lucia, just stop talking. We don't want people doing it. But it works. It works for me. And Tara, what about yourself?
Well, yeah, I was actually just going to say, look, I saw Tim and I have both seen a sports dietitian. So my plan has been tailor-made for me. Tim's is completely different for him. So female and male bodies absorb protein differently, and we absorb nutrients differently, obviously, things like amino acids and stuff like that. That all gets absorbed completely differently for males and females, and depending where you are in the cycle. So If you can afford a good sports dietitian, absolutely go for it. However, again, not everyone can afford that. So I will actually talk about something a bit later on regarding nutrition. Nutrition, I am somebody who does something every 45 minutes, and that's because I know that that's what I need personally to keep my body fueled. I will, the day before a long run, I will be very strict with what I eat. No fiber stuff because my stomach can't handle it. It will be something very simple, like a very simple pizza, some very plain carbohydrates, something like that. Sushi I'm okay with, I've found. I love a banana, as everybody knows, the morning of a run. I'll have bagel. I can eat plain crumpets and stuff like that. But afterwards, it's also very important to remember to get that protein into your body at 20 minutes after running. Now, the protein will actually help repair and replenish your muscles and help your brain function and make you feel fuller as well. So make sure that you get that protein in 20 minutes after, at least 20 minutes afterwards as well. But I will talk more about nutrition, not necessarily our side of things, but from a real expert later on. So I do want to next go into just a little bit of the hormonal side. Now, I'm going to go very, very plain and simple. I have got biochemistry as part of my degree, so I will keep it as simple language as I can for everybody. So the hormones are obviously going to change for your perimenopause, postmenopause, and your menstrual cycles. So by adjusting your training for each cycle that you're in is so important, and it helps you with your fatigue and things like iron deficiencies and stuff like that. So I've got a comment back from one of my running group ladies, and she was running really easily up to 25 Ks, no problems at all. And then she felt like she'd fallen off a cliff almost overnight. Now, and then was like struggling to run even 2 Ks. So she's been having more and more of these concerns with perimenopause. She saw a menopause doctor and she was put onto HRT. She's been on that for 6 months and then to test the levels and stuff like that. And she's been building her running back up. So she's actually training for the London Marathon at the moment and is up to 30 Ks, but she's finding that she is so much slower than what she was beforehand. So in a case like that, you've got to think about your body is changing. Don't be too hard on yourself about what speed you're going. It's easy to sit there and say, I was running at this speed 2 years ago. Unfortunately, your body has changed since then, so you can't. Well, you can, but it's going to take some time. Now, I do recommend that if you want to see a really good, probably if you're not up for seeing a GP or a hormonal doctor, maybe somebody like a naturopath. Now, make sure if you're going to see a naturopath, if you want to go down that natural side of things, that they're actually a qualified naturopath and they've actually got the science degree behind them as well. So you can get diplomas of naturopath and you can get a bachelor of naturopath. So just be aware that they learn different things for different reasons. So make sure that you're seeing somebody who's actually designed for what you want to see them for. I know personally with hormones, so I'll just do it really, really quickly for everybody, just so that they've got a bit of an understanding of why these things happen. But it's the endorphins and the prolactins, which is your main function normally for milk production, but it actually modulates anxiety and depressive behaviours. Now, these things are produced from running and it helps with your mental health. So the reason that you want to be running, you're producing more endorphins and prolactin. So it modulates your anxiety and your depressive behaviours. So that's pretty much what you need to remember there. You've got your cortisol in there as well, and that will rise when you're running, and that maintains your blood pressure, that maintains your immune function, and it also helps with the anti-inflammatory processes. So all of these things are why it's really important to keep your exercise levels up. Your testosterone will also rise when you're running. So in males, people think of it as your sex drive hormone, obviously, but it also signals your body to make new red blood cells. So by signaling to make new red blood cells, that's repairing and healing your body as well. So it's making your bones and your muscles strong. It also helps with your fat distribution with the testosterone. So you'll notice with males as they get older, their stomach area, sort of, they call it the beer belly. It's because the testosterone has changed in them. And that's probably the best way that I can put that one. Your growth hormones also rise, or your growth hormone rises when you're exercising. So that is your height and everything like that when you're growing, when you're young, when you're in puberty. However, it also helps build the bone and muscle. Then you've got your thyroid stimulating hormone, and that regulates your metabolism. You've got your follicle stimulating hormone, and that helps control your menstrual cycle. That all sort of doesn't change when you're exercising, but you do then have your luteinizing hormone. That helps control your menstrual cycle, but it stimulates testosterone as well, and that will rise when you've finished running. So all of these hormones, I've tried to keep them as basic as possible, but these are the hormones that are within the female body, and they change throughout your menstrual cycle, throughout your ovulation, throughout perimenopause, menopause, pregnancy, childbirth. All of those things will change depending on where you are. So just be aware that, going back to the previous question, you can't control what your cortisol levels are doing, what your thyroid's doing, or your testosterone's doing if you have some sort of imbalance. So I highly recommend seeing a GP and getting yearly blood work done, so like a CBC, and just asking for like your thyroid tests and all of that sort of stuff done. That would then give you a baseline to work towards every single year. And by getting that health check done by your regular doctor, you're not only getting your blood work done, you're also getting your heart checked and your lungs checked, your muscles and everything like that functioning, to make sure that you've got a baseline to work on, so that this poor lady who's like, I used to run very, very well 2 years ago, but now I can't. If you have a baseline to go on, you understand why. And you can also keep records by through your Garmin or Strava. You can go back and have a look at your pace and your times, you know, and your Garmin will track your menstrual cycle. So you can actually see, okay, well, last week I felt really, really good when I was running. I could run a 6-minute pace. I had no problems and I did 8Ks, no worries. This week I can't run more than 2 kilometers and I'm at 8-minute pace and I feel like shit. So is that your menstrual cycle, or is that actually something else going wrong with you? By tracking those things are happening, you can keep an eye on what is happening within your own health as well. So if you know that the slowing down of the run is happening at the same time each month, you know it's your menstrual cycle and those hormones that I just discussed creating those problems. However, if it's just getting slower and slower and slower and your tracking is just declining, please see your doctor, because there's something wrong. You know, there's whether or not it's medical, physical, whatever, please see your doctor. So by recording and tracking those progresses, very, very important.
Well said.
Yeah, look, sorry, I've taken up all the time, but definitely listen to your own body. If something doesn't feel right, just, you know your body better than anybody. Just because the textbook says that you should be doing this, this, and this, everybody knows outside that circle, 95% of us sit, you know, very few of us will sit inside that circle. And perimenopause and menopause, menstrual cycles is different for every single female. Pregnancies are different. Everything's different. So please listen to your own body. If you don't think something's right, please something about it. Yep.
And you leave your gut feeling as well, because sometimes you may get told, no, there's nothing wrong. But lately, like I have been hearing and seen on the news, that people have been going with their gut and their gut has turned out right. So don't be afraid to ask the questions if you're not happy with what you're being told as well.
Absolutely. And yeah, what Lucia just said, if you're not happy with what you're getting told and you don't feel it's right, seek a second opinion. It's very important. So back to what it was, it's just going to be about that nutrition side of things, and to get deeper into the hormones, I highly recommend reading the book called Raw and Next Level by Dr. Stacey Sims. Now, she's a PhD. She's got an exercise physiologist degree. She's a nutritionalist scientist, and she's got a specialty in female-specific nutrition and training for performance and longevity. So, especially when nutrition is based for the running. So, go and read or listen to a podcast by Dr. Stacey Sims. Highly recommend it. Amazing lady who really knows her stuff. So, yep, there you go. Back to whatever we need to do now, I guess. I think it's going to be Tim's tip.
Yep. So I think before I go any further, well done, Tara and Lucia. That's very interesting hearing all that side of things, but at the same time, probably shows there's enough there to talk about to put into another episode in the future about women's health issues when it comes to running. So we'll look to schedule one of those in the near future to continue the discussion going. But my tip this week is really for the guys out there. So if you are a guy and you've made it this far into the podcast, well done. But it's really for the guys or others out there who run with their partners, particularly if their partners are women. It is challenging for women, as we've just heard, to perform at certain times during their cycles, during their stages of life. So it is important as a bloke to understand that just because you might have grand plans to run faster or a certain distance, or to have a goal for the day to achieve, it may not always work out that way. And there may be some factors at play that you can't necessarily control, and your partner can't necessarily control either. So don't assume that your running partner can or wants to run at your pace all the time. Most of the time they do, but sometimes they can't. And it's okay that they can't run that pace. If you are somebody that needs to still push the distance out, then it might be okay to leave your partner for a while on that run to push out the extra distance and then come back to your partner at that point in time. A couple of other things around running with your partner: it might be better to encourage rather than compete. And it's also one to be mindful of respecting personal space. Running side by side can be fun, but too close can be too close, and definitely not something that you should be doing unless both people are comfortable running close together. Listen, communicate, maintain your distance, and just keep a general conversation going, and you'll have a lot of fun, just like Tara and I do. And that's my tip this week.
Excellent. Thank you, Tim. That is a perfect tip. So we are going to end this one now, but I'm going to hand it over to you, Lucia. Yeah. Is that right? We're going to hand this over to you, Lucia. So for next week, you want to tell us what's going on?
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. So on next week's episode, we're going to be talking about gels, and some more gels. So we'll talk about the need for gels and also on-course nutrition, while also discussing the benefits of fueling on your longer runs, which we've touched on briefly before. We'll also share what works for us, whilst also providing advice about the good, the bad, and the ugly from our many years of training and testing gels, because let me tell you, there are some absolute shockers out there. In addition, we will also provide some information on when you should be taking nutrition, as well as how much you should be taking. As usual, it's another episode you're not going to want to miss.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Lucia. So that concludes our show for this week. And as always, thank you very much to both of my co-hosts for being here with us today. And Lucia, your questions and your input has been very well appreciated. So thank you.
It was an amazing call, Tara.
Thank you. Well, we've got a bit of experience, both of us, in running and being females. So that's helpful. But for all of our friends that are running the Tokyo Marathon, good luck. We're wishing you all the best for next Sunday, and can't wait to hear your experiences when you come back. We love making these podcasts for you. Your feedback means the world to us, so please like, comment, or message us. If you've got anything you'd like to comment or add to this podcast, please let us know. We can add that into another one or mention it on the next one. Until then, we've got Facebook, Messenger, and Instagram. So happy to have that there. And then we've also got an email of happyrunning@flyingrunner.com. So definitely put those tips in for us. You can watch this episode on Spotify and YouTube, or you can listen to it on Apple, Amazon, and all other major podcast platforms. Remember, every step forward is a victory. Lace up, hit the road, and we'll see you the next time on the Flying Runr Podcast. Until then, happy running.
Happy running.
Happy running.